Hello and welcome to the Take Charge podcast. Today I'm joined by Barbara Hughes, who is the Vice President of Energy Storage at Forge Nano. She has a PhD in materials chemistry, and Barbara has enjoyed over 15 years in interfacial nanomaterials chemistry and novel battery applications, currently leading the technical efforts for the battery innovation line at Forge Nano. Barbara is also the chair of She's in Power, which is a fantastic non-for-profit providing a hands-on mentorship program designed to grow and inspire the women who will be tomorrow's clean energy leaders. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation around women in the industry, the importance of building diverse teams with an inclusive environment, the focus of Forge Nano's atomic armor technology, and their upcoming gigafactory in North Carolina. I'm a huge fan of everything that Barbara is doing, and I have no doubt that she's inspiring a generation. We need more people like Barbara. So, let's take charge. Hi, Barbara. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and talking about a few things today. She's in Power. I'm really interested about She's in Power and the good work you're doing there with a mentorship program and obviously bringing that into Forge Nano. And also about your new, soon to be new gigafactory in North Carolina. And then we can maybe talk around the strategies around hiring and why diversity, equity, and inclusion is important when looking at that, because it will be manufacturing, which is traditionally quite difficult to get right. So to begin with, it'd be great, Barbara, to learn about your journey so far and what inspired you to join Forge Nano.
Yeah, so if I'm really honest about it, it was actually a strong female ally that I had who inspired me to join Forge. So I spent 8 years of my life at the National Renewable Energy Lab. That's in Golden, Colorado. We also call it NREL. And this particular coworker had already moved on to Forge Nano. And she called me one day. I was in the third year of my postdoc, and she said, "Hey, would you be interested in joining this startup that I'm a part of?" And, at the time, I didn't know a lot about Forge Nano's tech, but I did know her and I trusted her, and I was at a really good point in my life. I had spent 8 years at NREL, first as a scientist, then as a postdoc, or excuse me, then as a graduate student, then as a postdoc. So it was really a good time for me to make the leap. It was a good time for me to take a risk with a startup. And, I went over and interviewed, and I really like what I heard, and I really wanted the opportunity to build a battery fabrication performance testing lab and to do it in industry. So it was good timing and, trusted coworker.
Great. And how long have you been with the business now?
I actually just had my 7 year anniversary on the 5th of December. So it's been a good long 7 years.
7 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. Interesting you mentioned there a female mentor, which got you into
Mhm.
Forge Nano, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So before we do, in terms of your mentor, kind of how did that come up? Did you speak to her first? Did she speak to you? How did all this kind of spark?
Yeah, we were actually in very different groups at NREL, but we were united by our love of playing rec league softball. So we were on the same team. But when she left NREL, she did keep in touch with everyone um, at the lab, and she knew that I was working in the battery space in my postdoc. I had done solar photochemistry in my PhD, and I was doing a polymer-based lithium-ion battery in my postdoc. And she was like, "Hey, I know this great person who can do this," and so she did contact me, which was awesome. And I do feel like it's worth saying that there aren't a lot of women in the sciences, and we do have a strong connection with one another. But I would say that most of the women that I've worked with in science have been peers or coworkers, and I think it's been really difficult to find mentors, like true mentors. In the field. I've had wonderful mentors, don't get me wrong. The National Lab was full of just brilliant scientists that were very humble and made it really easy to approach them. And they were just willing to impart as much knowledge as you were interested in gaining. And so I've had amazing mentors from the lab. But female mentors have been something that's been difficult to come by.
Mm, no, absolutely. Um, interesting you mentioned there obviously a long stint with NREL,
Mhm.
and then you switched into industry. And on
Yes.
previous shows, I've talked about the argument between staying in academia and moving into industry and vice versa. What inspired you to move into industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you had asked me at the beginning of my postdoc, I would have said that the end goal was to stay at NREL. It's a prestigious institution, and really building a career there is an excellent opportunity. But what I saw was that, I was in the third year of my postdoc, and I had watched a group of postdocs looking for jobs in industry and academics, and it just seemed very difficult to make the transition into industry with a PhD. I think there are a lot of foregone conclusions about people with PhDs being um, sort of one trick ponies and being experts in one particular field and not giving the credit to what we really learn as PhDs is how to learn and how to learn quickly. And so when I had the opportunity to jump into industry, I just couldn't pass it up. Like I said, it was a good time in my life. I didn't have a lot of financial commitments that would preclude me joining a startup. And it was an excellent place to really jump in. And the great thing about a startup is you get to wear multiple hats. You get to experience lots of things and be more, operate across more than one role, which is very different than a large company. And so I thought it would be an amazing experience, and the lab would be there if I wanted to go back. But I knew all along I didn't want to go into academics. That wasn't something that was interesting to me. I always wanted to either stay at the lab or go into industry.
Very good. And I think it's a really interesting topic is mentors and how, as you said, there's not many women in this field, and
Hmm.
you naturally are very close, and
Yeah,
at times gravitate to each other.
yeah,
And for people from a majority demographic, I think it's
hmm,
difficult for them to comprehend. So
right,
as for me as a white male, like I'm of a majority demographic and never really in that sort of situation. But then when I've had colleagues and individuals from more minority demographics,
yeah,
and learning from them, it's super important because if you go into a room and you are the only female in that room, and you don't identify with anybody, you're just different, in whatever
right,
way. Um,
right,
if there's another woman in there, you identify.
right,
And just from a current experience of mine now, I've moved to Spain recently. I don't speak the
hmm,
language, I'm learning, but whenever I play football, I gravitate towards someone who can speak English
right,
because
absolutely,
it's that kind of camaraderie, and you identify with each
yes,
other. So I think
yes,
it's just
yes.
important to talk to why women are so close in this industry.
Right. It's definitely a shared experience, and there is an unspoken understanding. You know that they have probably had some similar experiences, that they feel similarly walking into that room that is not majority woman. And I think that, not every woman is going to have the same outlook on the world, but we will have that shared experience, and there's comfort there.
Mm,
It can be intimidating when early on in your career, to be in these environments where you're very much in the minority, but you do learn to kind of navigate these spaces. But it is always comforting to know that someone else in that room has had to learn to navigate these exact spaces, and you know and has done it successfully, or is doing it successfully.
very good. And just before we get into talking about a bit about Forge Nano,
Mhm.
talk me through She's in Power because I was fascinated when I was initially reading about it.
Yeah, so She's in Power, kind of my newest passion project. I sit on the board. I'm actually the board chair of this nonprofit organization, and the organization is aimed at bringing more women into clean tech, or to the clean energy spaces. And it's both an internship as well as a mentorship program. And so we bring in women over the age of 18 at any stage in their career. A lot of the women that we've worked with have been in the college, have been in college, but we take women over 18, and we call these women sparks, and we find an internship for them in the Denver metro and northern Colorado area. So we are just located in Colorado right now. And we find these internships, they're paid internships with companies in clean energy, and this is a really good clean energy landscape in Colorado right now. And we call these internships our power partners. And alongside having a power project, this paid internship, we also pair them with an external mentor. And this external mentor meets with the Spark once a month, and they can be anywhere uh, in the country in terms of just meeting virtually. And so we're aiming to both give exposure to what the clean energy field looks like in terms of real jobs and workspaces, but also expanding their network by pairing them with another external mentor that shares their network with them. We hold networking events. We do research discussions of the different interns. And so they build a network within the program itself. And we really believe that by expanding, the transparency into the field and the network of these women, that we can expand their vision of what's possible for their own careers and help them to pursue a career in the field. And I could say that it's not just working in the lab. Clean energy involves marketing, it involves sales, it involves all different aspects, but working sort of in the clean energy sector. And so it's really been an awesome experience. We've brought those interns into Forge Nano, and that's been amazing. And we have interns all over the state of Colorado in battery companies, working closely with solar farms and wind farms and things like that. So it's really an exciting process to watch. It's something that I really wish I had had the opportunity to participate in when I was a young scientist in college and pursuing a degree in chemistry. There tend to be a lot of programs out there aimed at sending people into academics, into grad school and things like that, but not a lot that give a window and a leg up in industry. So there's not a lot of industry workforce development for women and other underrepresented groups.
Yeah, amazing. And is that any particular education level? And then I guess as well, I'd say it goes across functions, so manufacturing, engineering, sales, but education
Yep.
level, is that pretty open?
It is very open. It's our goal to find space and to, I guess, help women to understand that there is space for them, across multiple levels. And, the networking aspect is really helpful. The real world working experience is very helpful. And from a company perspective, you have these interns coming in, you get to trial run employees, figure out where they best fit. And then, ultimately placement in one of these companies is a great goal, but at least exposure at the very minimum.
Great. Um, and yeah, I think that accessibility is so important. As you said, you wish it was there when you were in that sort of situation. So no, that's great to hear, and good luck with the project. Is the plan to expand into other states, or is it to continue while staying niche?
I think ultimately the goal would be to expand. That would be amazing. With any nonprofit, we're always hamstrung by funding, by donations. We operate solely from external funding, and so we're really trying to build up strong partnerships with companies. And for anyone listening, go out, look at our website, donate. It's an excellent, worthy cause. But fundraising is always really difficult. And so that's the only thing that's really hindering us from being able to expand beyond Colorado.
Great. We're all about accessibility into the industry, especially for diverse groups. So we'll put a link on there in the podcast comments as well. So that's great. Um, let's get into talking about Forge Nano. And
Okay.
to get into talking about Forge Nano, as you mentioned, in Colorado, there's a lot of battery technology, clean energy organizations. I imagine you
Mhm.
had quite a few options when finishing your PhD. So, yeah, what was the key thing that made you choose Forge Nano? And then talk me through what Forge Nano does at its core.
Yeah. So Forge Nano came in at the right time when I was actually, the end of my postdoc, when I was looking at different opportunities that were available, just starting to kind of dust off my resume and get it going. And, that's when that colleague really reached out to me. And so it was very fortuitous timing for me to join Forge Nano. And at the time, I didn't know everything that there was to know about Forge, but I quickly learned that it was, a really innovative technology. And the core tech at Forge Nano is something called atomic layer deposition. And so what we do is we are a materials optimization company. So we take materials that are good or bad or terrible, and we make them amazing with this precision surface engineering process. And atomic layer deposition allows us to put coatings onto materials from nanoscaled materials to, golf balls. We can put these precision coatings on the surface. We like to use the analogy that ALD is like the candy coating on an M&M. So we can put down a very precise coating, we can put down a conformal coating, and we can control the thickness of that coating. And so in doing that, we make materials better, faster, more efficient. We make them better than what they were.
Great. And safer as well?
And safer, depending on which application we're looking at. Definitely in the battery space, we make materials safer, and we improve the stability of the materials. But the battery space is a huge area that we work in, but we work in other areas as well, where we improve upon that tech depending on what the sort of end product is. We can generally target whatever our customer is looking for. We can target the application space because ALD is so versatile, and it is also a high throughput technology as developed by Forge Nano.
Very good. You touched upon it there, the challenges that it's addressing, atomic armor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get a little bit deeper. So the main challenges that it's addressing. So you mentioned there safety,
Mm-hmm.
performance, things like that. So let's get a little bit deeper in terms of what it can do.
Right. So in the battery space in particular, there are a number of things a number of ways, I should say, that ALD improves upon the technology. And the thing to remember here is we apply ALD to every component inside of a battery cell. And so we have a significant impact. If we think about energy density of a cell, or think how far you can get or how long you can run on a single charge, atomic layer deposition improves that. So we improve the energy density of cells. Um, if you think about, when you want your phone or your computer to charge very quickly, for a power tool, you want it to be able to discharge very quickly. ALD enables high power cells that can fast charge and fast discharge more efficiently and more safe. And we also cut off a number of the failure mechanisms that cells undergo as they age over multiple charge discharge cycles. And so we reduce the gassing that you see in cells. We reduce resistance growth that happens over time in a cell that leads to capacity fade. And then from the safety perspective, we improve heat distribution across the cell by making a conformal surface. So we homogenize the interfaces, and so we don't get those hot spots that can lead to catastrophic failure. And so overall, we improve shelf life. So the amount of time that a cell sits, like the calendar life, performance after sitting on the shelf, we improve that significantly. So across the board, we have our hands in a lot of different areas, and we work with our customers to understand what they're looking for in terms of performance, and we're able to target those and improve upon their tech.
Very good. And you've been there for 7 years. So yeah, talk me
Yeah.
through how the company has changed and how the company has grown over the years.
Yeah. So when I joined Forge in 2016, I think it was, I was employee number 17. So we were tiny, tiny, tiny. We were primarily working with external partners in order to do any kind of battery optimizations. So with ALD, like any scientific process, there's an optimization with our coatings to understand which coatings are best, what thickness is optimum. And so we were doing all of that with external partners. We had no capabilities of doing any performance testing in-house. So when I came in, that was sort of my job over the first year, was to build out the battery lab. And so we started with coin cells in 2015 or 2017. And so that's like the small watch batteries. And we were able to develop close partnerships with national labs, like Argonne National Labs specifically was super helpful for helping us to validate our results externally and to make sure that we were implementing best practices within the lab. And then in 2020, 2021, we brought on multi-layer pouch cell capabilities in the lab. So now we can build bigger cells, going from a 2 milliamp hour coin cell to a 2 amp hour cell. We're still building pouch cells. And next year, very excited, we are going to be commissioning our 1 megawatt hour line. And these will all be cylindrical cells, 18650s and 21700s. And single shift, we'll be able to make about 50,000 cells a year. And we're building that out right now. It is chaos in the facility, but we're building that out now. And the team is really excited. I've had people that have been with me almost the same amount of time, actually an intern that transitioned, that was my first employee. And so it's been really fun to see the progression of the company as well as the progression of the employees. So, now we sit at over 100 employees, and, we're the world's leading experts at ALD coatings on battery materials. And we have customers all over the world, spanning EV to stationary storage to consumer electronics. And it's just, I feel like I haven't stopped learning. Every day brings a new challenge, and that's one of the things that I love about working at a startup. There are definitely things that are challenging, but that's one of the things that I really love.
It's interesting you say you have never stopped learning, and being with a battery startup for 7 years. Something I've noticed in this field is tenure time is pretty low.
Mhm.
Two years in a battery firm is considered a decent amount of time, whereas in
Yep.
other industries that might be considered as jumpy.
Yep.
So to stay for 7 years with Forge Nano, good level of growth, a really good level of growth, managed growth, I think is also important, because the rate in which that happens is also key. So
Right.
yeah, it sounds like you're in a good place right now, good foundation, and then of course the gigafactory
Yeah.
set to be open in North Carolina. So I'm looking forward to talking a bit more about that and how we scale that in a diverse way, which is going to be tricky. But
Yep.
before we do, Barbara, how would you simply define diversity, equity, and inclusion?
More simply than diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I'd say DEI is something that's it's something that's really important. It's a priority at Forge Nano. Personally, I would define it as either a value system or a methodology for creating an environment that's open, that's welcoming of differences, and abundant and unique experiences. But above all else, I think that it's a place that creates opportunities equitably, and generally makes the members of its ecosystem feel seen, valued, and heard by their peers as well as their management team.
Very good. And how important do you think it is when it comes to an overall success of a business?
I think it's been really important. I think that it's an imperative aspect to keep in mind when you for retention of good employees. It not only ensures that we're actively trying to avoid workplace toxicity to the best of our abilities, but it also helps to maintain an organization's innovative edge. I think that if you're only hiring one personality type from one region and one school of thought, you're going to very quickly create an echo chamber. And so you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to see where you can make meaningful change, changes to strategy or goals or how to achieve a particular goal. You're going to miss out on those opportunities if you don't have new and fresh ideas and problem solving. And I think DEI creates a more dynamic and resilient workforce. And just from the not necessarily a 50,000 foot perspective, but narrow in on the day-to-day interactions, I think that it leads to more productive disagreements and meaningful discourse among coworkers. So I think it's really essential to creating a healthy environment.
Definitely, I think it can be. Well, I think it is undervalued,
Hmm.
because some leaders don't truly understand it and
Hmm.
understand what a difference it can make. I think you summed it up quite well there. An echo chamber or an eco
Hmm.
chamber. It's a really good way of putting it because, as you say, if everybody thinks the same,
Yeah.
then decisions get made quickly, but there's no
Hmm.
opportunity to innovate on them. So
Absolutely.
especially within highly innovative businesses where IP is key, diversity has to be at the forefront because, as you say, healthy debate and diverse ideas and things. I think it's super critical. Um, yeah, rather than just homogenous thinking, because
Absolutely.
I think a lot of organizations get hung up on the whole image of the business and
Hmm.
metrics when that's not what it's about. It's about the innovation side of it and
Yep.
being open minded. It's super important. Um, so yeah, I mean, getting on to that, the factory in North
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yep.
So yeah, how are things looking right now? And yeah, what's the plan?
Well, right now things are very much in the early stages, and so the hiring teams have their work cut out for them. The factory construction of the actual factory has begun. I think the bare bones are kind of in place right now, and it's our Forge battery team is working sort of piecemeal between Forge Nano and remotely because they don't have an on-site yet, but they're doing their best to start to develop hiring plans, working with recruiters, working with local government in North Carolina to understand the best strategies for, building out a diverse talent pool to choose from, and looking at community initiatives in order to also, find the right people with the right talent, or who are at least willing to gain the right talent to be a part of, this what we think will be an excellent show of U.S. innovation.
And is it 2026? Am I right in thinking? Is the end
Yes.
goal? Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
good.
So we've got a little bit of time, but there's so much work to be done in the interim you wouldn't believe.
It seems far away, but it's not. It
It's
really
not.
isn't.
It's not at all. Not at all.
Um, Very good. And we've talked a lot about She's in Power.
Mhm.
Do you think that Forge Battery, obviously Forge Nano, Forge Battery in North Carolina, will look at a similar non-profit organization in North Carolina to do a similar job?
I certainly hope so. I know that it is, as I said, a high priority DEI. I would love it if, by some miracle, like Forge Battery could be our first national power partner for She's in Power. That would be awesome synergy for two groups that I'm really excited about. But I definitely think that, as I said before, we're working with community initiatives, local government, try to understand what we can do, what programs are out there, and we're exploring all of that as we speak. These are sort of all of the necessary steps that we have to take in these early stages.
Mm. I think the concept is very simple. It's providing a platform and accessibility for women in the business to
Mhm.
pursue careers in this space. And
Right.
in North Carolina, it might be manufacturing personnel or engineering personnel. And
Mhm.
yeah, I just think that accessibility is so key. And of course,
Yes.
it's a non-profit organization that's doing this,
Right.
which is amazing. But I
Right.
think there should be some other organizations, and there should be more emphasis placed on this because
Absolutely.
yeah,
You said it. You tell them.
you should be paid for it. Honestly,
I agree. I
yeah,
100% agree. But we have a dedicated team, and we're going to do everything that we can to ensure that this program is successful. And, we care about the mission, and we think that we provide value not just to the women that are participating, but to the companies, as I said, that get to test drive a diverse talent pool. And, bring on definitely a recruiting tool that they have at their disposal. And so I think that we provide amazing value, and I'm really excited to continue our work.
amazing. So I imagine you've mentored a lot of women in your time. Um,
Mhm.
so for females in the STEM space today, what is your pitch to get them into the battery and clean tech space?
Yeah, I think that the point that I would want to make first and foremost to any woman who may be interested in batteries is to let them know that there is space for them here and that they are needed in this space. And I think sort of my pitch would be that this is an industry where your input can have extraordinary value very quickly. So anywhere where we're working on device based research, we get that performance feedback immediately. And I think that that's really satisfying. That's what's drawn me to application based science, whether it was solar or batteries. And I think that's what I think is the most exciting is getting that device performance feedback immediately. And yeah, so I think there is space for you. You are wanted. There is a place. Your feedback is valuable, and we can make a real difference.
Great. Um, and in terms of the US competing with China, it's obviously a big thing right now. So much investment going on in
Sure.
the US, which is great. Um,
Mhm.
is there maybe an advantage to be had when it comes to focusing on diversity and inclusion? Will that help the US get a leg up against China?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to that innovation piece. I mean, I think where I place my hopes in the US is on US innovation. We have world class research institutions and national lab in both national labs and universities here. The know how is here. We're catching up from a production perspective, and there are certain incentives in place to help US manufacturers catch up. But I do think that the emphasis that we place on diversity and inclusivity is really going to help us to, have an innovative edge. So, maybe we're not trying to necessarily compete with China, maybe because we're trying to make a product that's better, safer, and more efficient. So maybe compete isn't the best word. We're doing something different, and my confidence really lies with U.S. innovation.
Great. And in terms of inclusivity, diversity and inclusivity, have you seen a change in the past 7 years? Not necessarily just in Forge Nano, but the industry in general.
And inclusivity. Well, I would say that because we don't have all of the experience, I guess, infrastructure from a manufacturing perspective. Battery production is relatively new in the U.S., and so we've drawn upon a lot of our connections with our partners and different countries in order to bring in some of that expertise. So that's a nice way that we're being more inclusive. I think in STEM in general, we're always trying to generate opportunities to introduce people to the field. If you walk into a national lab, I'd say it's one of the most diverse places that I've worked, and for people from different backgrounds, cultures, um, different countries, and such. And so, I think that we're really trying to pull on, the best of the best in the U.S. And we're very lucky to have prestigious institutions which attract talent from all over. And so that's one of the things that I see is that there is a huge diversity of backgrounds in the battery space. And so I think we're doing something right, at least there.
Yeah, I think as well as the mentoring program, accessibility
Mhm.
for women to move into the industry.
Mhm.
I think it's also just as important to educate those currently in the industry
Mhm.
around inclusivity and educate them on why this is important and open
Yep.
people's mind because as you say, you can inspire them to join, but if they don't feel
Yep.
like they belong and they are subject to discrimination, then
Absolutely.
they're not going to stick around for long. So I
Absolutely.
think it's just as important on that inclusivity piece to
Mhm.
educate current employees.
It's true.
Is that something that you've had a hand in over the years? Is there any advice that you could give on that side and how to train different teams?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got from someone who works exclusively kind of in this DEI field was that when you enter into a space where you're going to be talking about DEI or you're going to be training, one of the most important things that you can do is to suspend disbelief. And what he meant by that was that everybody's going to come into a situation with their different perspectives, their different um, biases. And so it's going to be impossible to have compassion for another person's position if you can't suspend those biases that you have and really listen to understand what the experiences of those that are maybe different from you, and really suspend that disbelief that you may have that there is an inclusivity problem, that there is a diversity problem, and that the training is really necessary. So coming into it with an open mind, coming into it with sort of an earnest desire to have a discussion and to really understand is really important. And I'd say also it's really important to leave it to the professionals. I think that there's an entire field of humans that um, have an expertise in this field, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are resources out there. We These conversations can be awkward, and there are people to facilitate them. And I think there's no better approach than to bringing in a professional in this area and having it done right.
Love that. Nice
Yeah.
advice. Thanks, Barbara. Um, you rightly mentioned before that manufacturing is new. It's fresh in the US when it comes to batteries. So
Yeah.
surely that presents an opportunity to get this right. You know,
Right.
where do we recruit from? Do we recruit from very male heavy industries? There's, because it is new, there's surely an opportunity to get this right. So
Right.
yeah, let's see how things look in 5-10 years.
Absolutely.
And as a closing suggestion on that point, how do you think the battery and electrification, clean energy world will look in 10 years from now?
Well, I guess my hope is that we will see more widespread EV adoption, if not, electric vehicles being the only offering. I mean, I really feel like we are in a space where we can make that happen. In the US in particular, we're going to have to do a lot, I'm sure everywhere, but we're going to have to do a lot around infrastructure, making sure that it is convenient and access to charging stations and things of that nature are available so that people feel more comfortable with the electrification and adoption of it. And, I think that we will continue to improve upon the state of the art of the technology. We're going to continue to make it, cheaper, safer, and more efficient. And I think that we'll also continue to develop new tech for niche applications that are going to be required for more demanding performance metrics. And I think it's going to be really exciting. I think that people are going to become less hesitant as they see um, that things are well developed and safe and convenient. We're going to see a lot of that hesitancy go away.
Fingers crossed. Let's see. but um,
Absolutely.
but but Barbara, thank you again for coming on today. Everything you're doing at She's in Power sounds amazing. Hopefully that can expand and inspire
Yeah,
more females across all the states. I'm
absolutely.
starting with North Carolina, hopefully.
Yep,
Um, and again, congratulations on all your great work at Forge Nano the last 7 years, growing the business to where it is now. And the atomic armor has clear benefits. So
yep, absolutely.
good luck for the coming years. It sounds like it's going to be busy, but then when isn't it? So
Exactly. So many learning opportunities, so much to do, so much to look back on and be really proud of ourselves.
exactly. But now, thank you again, Barbara. Really appreciate coming on board, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.